Then I was made supervisor of the Colombo squad. That was a very active squad and it had a lot of good agents on it. And it was a real honor to be made supervisor of that squad. From there, I participated in the arrest of the acting boss at the time was a guy named Alphonse Alley Boy Persico. He was made the acting boss after Joe Colombo got shot at Columbus Circle. He was the leader of a organization called the Italian American Civil Rights League. The theme of it was is that the mafia and the media and everyone else was targeting all Italian Americans, which was not true. Absolutely. We had as many Italian Americans working as FBI agents as they had in the mafia. Gambino called him up on the carpet because Gambino was the boss of all bosses in New York. Knock it off. You know, you're bringing heat on us, the mob guys. And Colombo accused him of being a traitor to the Italian cause. He spat on the floor at his feet, which was a real insult. The one thing you don't want to do is disrespect a boss like Gambino. We believe there's no proof of this. This is a theory, and a lot of people support it, including myself, that Gambino went to Joe Gallo, a guy named Crazy Joe Gallo. He was a capo, and the captain in the Colombo family hated Joe Colombo and gave him a hit contract on Joe Colombo. Gallo probably hired a black African American that was posing as a photographer, went to the rally and shot Colombo in the head. Huge story at the time. Colombo remained in a coma for several years and eventually died. The individual that pulled the shot, posing as the photographer, Jerome Johnson, was shot and killed at the site by Mafia members. Police officers surrounding the place made no arrests. So that was unusual. Alphonse Persico took his place. We eventually, as a squad, came up with a case against Alphonse Persico, Alley Boy. We went up to Saugerties, New York to arrest him. I led the arrest team. We went up at about 5 or 6 in the morning, and we saw a woman in the kitchen smoking a cigarette. It was his wife. Knocked on the window, showed our credentials, and she opened the door and let us in and said her husband was getting dressed. The agents went back in the bedroom where he was getting dressed, and I was just chatting with her, and two little kids came out, and they were a little tiny boy and a girl, and kind of wrapped their arms around their mother, and they were, scared a little bit. So I walked back into the bedroom and I told the agents not to handcuff Alley Boy, Persico. They were getting ready to handcuff him. I said, don't handcuff him. His children and his wife are in the kitchen. Let him walk out. And then they warned Alley Boy not to do anything. 2 weeks later, there was a major theft of crown jewels that taken from a Catholic church in Brooklyn, St. Rosalia Church. And the crown jewels were established in 1945 during World War II, and it was contributions of rubies and diamonds and so forth from girlfriends, wives, sisters of individual soldiers that were fighting overseas in World War II. And they had a ceremony. It was a lot of publicity, New York Times. It was a big deal. So when it was stolen by these two individuals, they went up on a ladder and took it off. It was big news. And so the next morning, we got a phone call from an informant of the Colombo family and told us, hey, we got the jewels. And we're getting ready to break them apart and sell them individually. I called Alphonse Persico because I thought I established a bit of a relationship with him as we rode into Manhattan after he was arrested. And I asked him if he would meet me, and he finally agreed. And we met in a park in Brooklyn. It was one of those one square block parks, and it had a middle area pathway. I walked from one end, he walked from the other. We sat on a bench in the cold weather, and I asked him if he had any information about the jewels, if he would let me know. The following morning, I was at home making breakfast for my children. The phone rang. It was the FBI switchboard operator in Manhattan. She said she had a rough talking individual on the phone that insisted on talking to me. He came on and he says, Mr. McQueeny, the package you want is in downtown Manhattan, locker 312. And he hung up. And that was all that conversation. He obviously was kind of a mobster type by the voice and so forth. I called a couple agents. We got a hold of the Port Authority. We got access to the locker. I got there. We opened the locker, and there were the crown jewels. And it was brilliant. I mean, it lit up the darn office that we were in. And we took them down, and they placed them on black velvet, and all of the news media came in, and it was a big deal. And our assistant director delivered the jewels to Cardinal Terence Cook, who was the Archbishop of New York. I think it was a matter of respect. I respected Alphonse Persico when I allowed him to walk out of his kitchen without handcuffs. He was enough of a criminal to know that was taking a chance by me. He could have done something. He could have had a gun in the kitchen or something like that, and it would have been a horrible thing that we did. I probably wouldn't be here talking about it today. But I respected him, and when I asked him for a favor, he respected me by going back and telling his mob guys that he was the boss of, hey, we're going to return the jewels. Respect is extremely important, and that's why when Joe Colombo spat on the floor at the feet of Carlo Gambino, that might have marked, if that story is true, that might have marked the end of Joe Colombo.